For some of us, the desire for belonging gets really specific, and the priority one for us becomes finding our soulmate, finding the one, the person who will complete us, the person we're meant for, which is a good thing to desire. To want to be chosen, to find your person, that's a huge priority for almost all of us, and it was definitely my primary focus in my 20s. I wanted security, to be chosen, to be desired, to be deeply understood, to be known and to be cherished. Maybe you're longing for those things too. I thought that finding my soulmate would bring me those things, and he had to be out there somewhere. I was doing all that I could to be and do what would make me a keeper. I would never be the one who captured the guy because of how I looked in a bikini, but I knew how to mold myself into the one he'd want by his side for the long haul. At least that was the plan I was working towards. And during a college summer break, things started to look up. It was a hot summer evening and I was bored and I was frustrated that I had to waitress because I really wanted to be hanging out with my high school friends. And then he walked in and there was just something different about this guy. He was good looking. He was wearing this horizontal blue and white striped shirt that looked a little French. And then he opened his mouth. And when that British accent came out, I was sold right then and there. And 2 years later, he was down on one knee. And he said, if I promise to make you happy for the rest of your life, will you marry me? Well, who would say no to an offer like that? A person who has pursued you, promising to make you happy? So I said yes to the ring, the dress, the new life. We got married and we moved to Europe and we were all set to live happily ever after. The dream had come true and I was excused from all the stressful activities my friends were facing, sending out resumes, applying for grad school, working hard at new jobs. So I just figured it was going to be smooth sailing for me. But the feeling of being pursued came to something of an abrupt stop once we settled into married life. Work demanded all of my husband's time, but my days felt empty and lonely. And about 3 months into our marriage, I sat him down and in so many words, I let him know that I wasn't happy. His promise to me was not actually working out so well. And after laying out all of the things that were making me feel depressed and all the things that I'd given up for him when I left my country to move to his, he looked at me and he said this. He said, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life apologizing to you for a decision you made. You signed up for this. This is your life. This was not the response that I had been expecting. Where was the pursuit? The romancing, the kind words that would remind me that I was okay. In fact, that I was more than okay, that I was actually fabulous and the one he would choose again and again. Where was the assurance that I was deeply understood and truly seen? Where was the soulmate who would love me as much in my vulnerability as in my moments of strength? I was giving it all that I had, so where was the security, the feeling of safety? The actions from his side that would remind me that I was worth fighting for. I had been waiting for the perfect moment to get honest, because who wants to admit that they don't have it all together, that the life they've carefully constructed actually feels super empty and unfulfilling? And I thought that if I was authentic and dropped my mask, I'd get a response that would soothe my heart. But instead I felt abandoned, just left to figure it all out on my own. So I switched into performance mode. If he wasn't going to swoop in as the knight in shining armor, then I would become an exemplary wife, an accomplished expat, the most attentive mother. I would pour myself into my roles and do everything in such a way that there would be safety in my success. But all the while I was longing to be told, you're enough, you're my choice, you're my soulmate, I choose you again. And I thought that maybe the sweatpants and the messy ponytail version of me wasn't enough. So I watched my weight, watched my mouth. I tried to pour myself into the mold of perfection that I figured would be irresistible. This did not lead to a greater sense of safety. Instead, I just felt I was walking on eggshells much of the time. I needed to get it right. I needed to figure out the balance of how much of myself I needed to change or hide in order to get the relationship in return. So I made a study of my husband, and I could see the parts of me that annoyed him and the things that impressed him. And I remember feeling like I was getting better at being what he wanted, at displaying what he found attractive, but it was so hard to keep up. Exhaustion aside, how do you think all this ends? How do you think this kind of relationship maintenance affects intimacy? 30 years in, I can tell you. I'm giving you a heads up in hopes that you don't take the path that I followed for too long. Let me pull back the veil and show you what it looks like when you edit yourself for love. You end up being a very good performer. And sometimes you get the right words of affirmation that you're hoping for, and you're told that you're amazing, you're beautiful, you're interesting, you're smart. You're told that you're loved. But a funny thing happens when you're taking in those compliments, because a little voice in your head whispers, he doesn't really love you. Because the you he's talking about is the you portray. It's not the real you. It's just the parts that aren't too much, that don't overwhelm with emotions or passions or desires. I was a very good performer. So good, in fact, that I don't think even my husband knew how much of myself I was holding back. But while I was glad that my husband approved of me as I played my part, I was in fact rejecting his love. Because he was doing his best to see me and to love what he saw, but I was hiding. And that's another thing. You can't self-protect and love at the same time. This means that what I was offering was an abbreviated version of the love he deserved, and I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, it's clear that no one wins in this scenario. So I've been learning to be more honest, to bring the real me to the table, even if it means I risk rejection. But my deep desire for my naked soul to be seen, for my deepest emotions to be understood, for myself to be utterly known and absolutely loved, I wonder, is this something that a man, even the most selfless and kind, can ever perfectly offer? How can he know me truly in this way when so often I don't even understand myself?